Hello YouTube. Today we're going to be talking about cost curves for economics. Pretty much we're going to go through a chart of a scenario where we hire a certain number of workers. We pay them, obviously. We also have equipment that we use. And we're going to figure out our average fixed costs, our average total costs, our marginal costs, and many more. We'll get through each chart bracket, I guess, one at a time. So here's what we have here. Pretty much, so you have quantity of labor is number of workers, total product is how much they can produce, and now we're going to calculate the marginal product for each person. So the marginal product is simply the difference that from each worker. So from 0 to 1, we go from 0 to 4, so our marginal product is 4. We still make 4 workers, or 4 products from 1 worker. So now we go from 1 worker to 2 workers. Instead of making 4, we make 10. So our marginal is the change in product. Marginal, think always change. Product is what is produced. So we go from 10 to 4. What's the difference? The change is 6. 10 minus 4 is 6. Now you do the same thing. You go from 2 to 3. You go from 10. Let's make this. So we'll say number of sweaters produced. So 10 sweaters. 13 sweaters. The change is 13 minus 10, which is 3. And then you keep doing the difference. You'd have 2 and then 1. So what's the average product? Well, the average product is the total product divided by the quantity of labor, which is written in red. Now, the average product for this would be 4, because 4 over 1 is 4. Now, what about between 1 and 2? So between 1 and 2, you would have simply 10 divided by 2, which is 5. So your total product for 2 workers is 10 divided by the number of laborers you have is 2. So the division would be 5. Now you do 13 divided by 3, which would give you 4.33. Then you do 15 is the total product you produce, and you have 4 workers now. So the average product you produce is 3.75 per worker. And then you have 16 divided by 5 when you would get 3.2 per worker. So realize that as the more workers you have, it's you're getting less of average product. But we'll deal with that now later. So the wage. Say you have a constant wage of 25 bucks an hour for each person. So every time you pay a worker, you add a worker, you're adding $25 per. You're paying that person $25 each. So that's just going to be constant down the board. You're not going to pay one person more than the other. Okay, so now our total fixed cost. So fixed means doesn't change, or constant. So what doesn't change? What stays the same? Well, our wage stays the same, and our wage stays the same, as well as our quantity of labor as it increases. So that's what's, I guess, is going to kind of change. But so our fixed costs will actually just stay. Well, actually, they'd have to give you this. Maybe this would be like for machines or something. So say the machines to operate was also 25, and we'll do that all the way across as well. It'd be your fixed costs, also your wages are your fixed costs, I guess, too. But our variable costs would actually be our wages times the number or the quantity of labor. So how much we're paying versus how many people we have. So if you have only one person, you're only paying 25 bucks. But if you have 4 people, then you're paying 100 bucks for each person. But we have to consider your total cost. So your variable cost would be 0 for the first one, and then 25 for the first person, and then 50 for the next, because you have 2 workers, and then 75. So you just keep adding 25, 100, and then 125. So your total cost is simply the addition between your total variable cost and total fixed cost. So it's just pretty much total fixed cost plus total variable cost equals total cost. So now that we do that, you simply add the numbers up and you get. Okay, so moving on, I moved the total cost over as the same thing. It's now typed. But now we're going to move on to marginal cost, average variable cost, average fixed cost, and average total cost. So for calculating marginal cost, it's pretty much wage divided by your marginal product. To calculate your average value cost, or variable cost, would be your total value cost divided by your total product. Your average fixed cost would be your total fixed cost divided by your total product. and your average total cost would be your total cost divided by your total product. Notice how this is always divided by your total product when we're dealing with cost for average costs. So now let's jump into marginal cost. So the marginal cost is wage divided by marginal product, so let's look at that. So seeing how it's wage divided by our marginal product for our marginal cost, let's look at our wage. Our wage remains constant, and we are dividing this by our marginal product, which is here. So we simply do 25 divided by 4, 25 divided by 6, 25 divided by 3, 25 divided by 2, 25 divided by 1, and that is how you calculate those values. So 25 divided by 4, 6.25, and then we have 25 divided by 6, which is 4.17. Then we have 25 divided by 3, which is 8.33. Then we have 25 divided by 2, which is 12.5. And then we have 25 divided by 1, which is 25. So that's how we got those values. So now we're going to go for average variable cost, and average variable cost is total variable cost divided by total product. Okay, so our average variable cost is our total variable cost divided by our total product. So our total variable cost is in this column here, and we're going to divide it by our total product, which is here. So 25 divided by 4, 50 divided by 10, 70 divided by 13, 100 divided by 15, and 125 divided by 16. So now we're looking at our total fixed cost divided by the total product. So that'd be 25 divided by 0, 25 divided by 4, 25 divided by 10, 25 divided by 13, 25 divided by 15, 25 divided by 16, and that was how we would acquire the average fixed cost. So I'm going to put those values in. Alright, and finally we have our total cost divided by our total product, which is our average total cost, which makes sense. The average total cost is what our total cost is, and we divide it by how much product we produced. So we're looking at our total cost right here, and we divide it by our total product produced, which is right here. So 25, 0, you can't do so, but last time I did that, yeah. So 50 divided by 4. And then we have 75 divided by 10, 100 divided by 13, 125 divided by 15, and 150 divided by 16. And that's how we calculate our average total cost. And there you have it. So a few formulas we should probably go over. So our total cost is equal to our total product times our average total cost. Our average fixed cost is equal to the total fixed cost divided by the quantity of labor, or how much is produced. Then we have our average total cost, which is equal to our total cost divided by our total product, again, which makes sense, the total amount of money you make over, or total amount of costs that you acquire over the amount of product you produce. Your average total cost is your average fixed cost plus your average variable cost. Again, that's just fixed plus variable is total kind of idea. Then you have your total variable cost, which is equal to wage times the number of workers. Again, that changes. The reason why it's variable because it changes depending on how many workers you hire, and you have a wage for each worker. Then you have your marginal cost, which is your change in total cost over your change in total product. Remember, think of marginal as change, and it resides in between the values that you're changing between. And pi is profit for econ, and that is equal to total revenue minus total costs. You can translate total revenue to equal price times quantity, and total cost to be quantity times average total cost. And if you factor out the quantity, or the Q, since it's the same value, you can rewrite the formula to look like this, and that's how you can calculate your profits. We didn't cover that here, but just to touch on that as well, we could have added a column. But one thing I want to suggest you to do to study, if you're interested or studying this currently, I would change these numbers and see if you can do the same thing on your own and calculate the values without you looking at the formulas. So maybe you do it once, change the numbers, look at the formulas, see where they're coming from, but then I would encourage you to erase these formulas and see if you can do it completely on your own, and then check your work to really see if you understand it. So good luck studying.